right, shifting gears for 1 hour, we have Dr. Len Horowitz on the line, and not only do we have him on the line, we have him via Skype, so this should be a very interesting interview. And Mr. Horowitz, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jason. Pleasure to join you.
Well, we really want to get into Baxter International, this bird flu virus, and you're much better suited to talk about this than I am. The two separate types of live bird flu that were found in it, and the separate type of flu strain that was found in it. Why does this seem utterly impossible to be an accident? And what are the ramifications? I know we got a whole hour to talk about it, so why don't you just kind of lead us into that?
Okay, well, I've been focused on Concert for the Living Water, so you've got to forgive me. Give me a little bit of background beyond the fact that Baxter is totally integrated with the petrochemical pharmaceutical cartel and the progeny of IG Farben, Germany's leading industrial organization that were obviously intimately connected with the Third Reich and the breakdown of that whole cartel. That now leads to American Home Products, Baxter, the people that were implicated in the anthrax mailings, people who have been implicated in spreading AIDS through contaminated vaccines. And Baxter has also reputations of poisoning other people in other ways. So give me a little bit of background. What's the story?
All right, basically last month, Bloomberg really quickly at the end of February picked up on a story that Baxter had mailed out to 14 different countries a anti-avian flu vaccination, basically, supposedly the cure. Now, one of the subcontractors in Czechoslovakia injected one of his ferrets. The ferret died, and then they analyzed it, and they said that they had two live, in fact, if we could pull up some articles, guys, while I'm talking about this in prisonplanet.tv, two live strains of the avian flu. I think it was H3N1, and then it was H3N1, maybe A, or it was a subspecies of that. And then there was another type of flu virus in this. Now, they tried to claim it was an accident, but it would seem to me that this just couldn't be possibly an accident.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's never an accident. It's really basically part of what's called iatrogenocide, physician-induced illness. In this case, it's pharmaceutical malfeasance. There's a very interesting movie that you might want to go see right now if you haven't seen it already. It's called Duplicity. And it talks about how the Central Intelligence Agency and British Secret Service, MI6, is engaged in industrial sabotage, and their agents kind of like leave the service of the government, and they kind of like step right through a revolving door into the greedy corporations whose presidents and officials are basically insane with power and money on their minds. And they basically engage the world of industrial sabotage, malfeasance, and espionage to take corporations out and basically spread profits through any way possible, including, like you're talking about, sickening and enslaving populations to vaccinations and pharmaceuticals. So that's what I always look at. There's nothing that tells me, based on all the science, that vaccines serve any other purpose than to conduct genocide. That's the mass killing or enslaving of people for profit.
Right, we'll get into that on the other side. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, prisonplanet.tv, Infowars.com. All right, folks, we are back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. We're on the line with Dr. Leonard Horowitz. And you were just basically breaking down how, in your opinion, vaccinations have been used to just basically enslave populations as well as cause genocide. There is no benefits to vaccinations.
That's right. Absolutely. I'm convinced of that after years of me. You know my history. I used to recommend vaccinations routinely to healthcare professionals that I personally trained, along with sterilization, disinfection, waste disposal, barrier protection. I used to routinely recommend vaccinations. And then I woke up. I realized what was really going down, which is iatrogenocide. That's physician-induced illness. That Dr. Robert Mendelsohn coined that term to describe precisely vaccination, intoxication, and the enslavement of humanity to drugs of all sorts to fight all the diseases that are being induced by the vaccines. In this particular case, like you're talking about, avian flu, or it doesn't matter whether it's avian flu or all these other diseases that people have today, most of them are induced by the injection of foreign RNA, foreign DNA, foreign pieces of particles from bacteria, viruses, fungus, yeast, chicken embryo, bovine fetal serum, monkey kidney tissues with smallpox vaccine. It's cow pus. I mean, if you want to add eye of newt so that your witch's brew can be complete, go right ahead. But that's what you're looking at. And so all you have, I mean, Alex and you have been doing a great job expressing how propaganda controls the public's mind, mass mind control, mass media persuasion does that. And so people believe that vaccines are safe and effective. And, you know, it was Hitler who said you tell a lie long enough, eventually we believe this truth. And the greater the lie, more people will believe it. The phrase vaccines are safe and effective is exactly descriptive of what Hitler and Joseph Goebbels was basically disseminating. A lot of hot air that was unfortunately in many cases deadly.
So why do we believe that, for instance? You know, why, you know, not only because it's been parroted, how do we get there? Where was the need for vaccinations? And then all of a sudden it comes out, you know, as taught as a kid, I believe Louis Pasteur and the pasteurization process, that's where we're first introduced to this idea of, you know, vaccines and this process. I mean, why do we believe that we need them, and when were they first started to be used?
Well, the first thing that I would highly encourage you and all of your listeners to read, first of all, is the Protocols for the Elders of Zion, wherein there, the allegedly Rothschild banking cartel, the monsters who have been literally controlling virtually everything, the Anglo-American genocidal colonialization of planet Earth called globalization. You know, it's neocolonialization, neocolonialism, and enslavement. They started back in the 1700s, if that particular document is accurate, and I believe it is, because of not so much as an anti-Semitic document per se, but as a document that literally lays out what the globalist agenda was way back then. In that document, you see very clearly that one of the ways that the forefront of their controlling the populations was vaccination. In fact, they say the injection of diseases among the people would be used literally to bring about the New World Order. So that's essentially what we now move forward. You go through Pasteur time, you realize that Nissan and all the people that were saying that no, the germ is nothing, the terrain is everything, got outvoted by the Rockefeller cartel's money, and the manipulation of science at that point basically condemned everybody that was saying that all you need to do is boost natural immunity holistically, and created a terrain that the germs, bacteria, viruses, fungus, yeast won't grow in, cancer won't grow in. Like your ad talked a little bit about how oxygenation and alkalinization are absolute preventatives against the infectious diseases and the chronic diseases of today, and that's absolutely true. So that now you begin to realize that there was an agenda to get into the antimicrobial arena. Instead of probiotics, now you got antibiotics. In other words, war against all biology. That's essentially insane, based on all the science and all the knowledge and all the understanding we have in wisdom and spirituality and natural healing capability. And so what we've got now are the power brokers who are controlling the petrochemical pharmaceutical cartel, telling the public's mind, indoctrinating in culturalization. In essence, what you're looking at when you watch television and the commercials now on prime time for a 60-second advertisement for pharmaceutical, they'll tell you 10 seconds of the deadly side effects that are worse than the disease that you're taking the drugs for. Well, why are they doing that? There's no law that tells you that for 60 seconds you need 10 seconds to tell you the risks. They're doing it because it's an indoctrination tool. The culture is being manipulated. The public's mind is being persuaded to take on these drugs, to take on the ideology that it's normal to be so sick, to pop magic pills to cure every ill, to inject yourself, intoxicate you and your children with heavy metal, mercury-laden, neurologically impairing vaccinations. All of this is absolute insanity, Satanism, worse than a cult. In a cult, there's elements in a cult that, you can kind of rely on to give you the scoop and really where the demonic realm likes to dwell. This is covert. what we're seeing is worse than the worst kind of overt indoctrination culturalization. And that's unfortunately where we are today in Babylon. Babylon is falling. The economy is, degenerating along with everything else. And so, you come out of her, my people, lest ye be infected by her plagues, is what Yeshua, Jesus, said to warn us about how do you deal with this.
And, you talked about mercury and the vaccinations. They literally in the Washington Post, I think it was about a month and a half ago, they said that about 50% of the high fructose corn syrup had mercury in it. It seems like it's everywhere, and this is a eugenics program to dumb the population down, not just with vaccinations anymore, but literally what we eat.
Yeah, every which way possible. In the book Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare that people can get through healthyworldstore.com. It's a very worthwhile read. It's called Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism, and Toxic Warfare.